For more on this, we're joined from Beirut by Maha, Yahya. She's the director of the Carnegie Middle East Center. Her research focuses on citizenship, pluralism, and social justice in the aftermath of the Arab uprisings. Ms. Yahya, thank you so much for talking with us. First up, the Prime Minister has resigned, saying, "My call to all the Lebanese is to prioritize the interest of Lebanon, the safety of Lebanon, the protection of civil peace, and the prevention of economic collapse before everything else." But is his stepping away a move unlikely to calm tensions between protesters and bring about some of these changes that he wants to see?
Hi, and thank you for having me with you. His move came about as a result of both pressure from the street by protesters and the fact that his key allies or key partners in government were not budging on any changes in the cabinet to just at least give some concessions to the protests. So he found himself basically caught between a rock and a hard place. Now, will this resignation trigger the kind of broad-ranging changes that people are looking for? I sincerely doubt it. The political parties in Lebanon, the political/sectarian parties in Lebanon, have a real stranglehold on the system. They're embedded in most state institutions. They've been using state institutions to guarantee their own sustainability. So it will be very difficult to, at this point in time, for this system to entirely change. And this is, I think, where the protests need to continue.
Right, and those protests are due to economic stagnation, corruption, the failure of government to provide basic services. I remember covering the garbage pileup from just about 3 years ago. Garbage wasn't being picked up, and apparently that problem has also polluted the Mediterranean too. How bad are things for the average person? There's the garbage, by the way. We're seeing it.
And the garbage problem 3 years down the road still has not been, 4 years down the road, excuse me, still has not been resolved fully. It is bad. It is bad. People are seeing, this doesn't come out of the blue. It's been building up for quite some time. People are seeing their savings disappear. They're seeing their pensions disappear as the threat to destabilize the currency is increasing. Just in the last week, the cost of basic goods increased between 15 to 30%. So unemployment is quite high. Lots of university graduate students, they come out and they have no jobs. They graduate and they have no jobs. The prospect of finding jobs outside of Lebanon, the joke always was that Lebanon's best export is its human resources. Today, in this global atmosphere, that prospect is no longer really there. The Gulf is downsizing in terms of its, they're not accepting, they don't have as many job opportunities as in the past. Europe, with everything else going on there on the economic front, but also with xenophobia, they don't want people coming from this region. So there is a real crisis. So this is a young generation that finds itself highly educated with no prospects in terms of employment, but also realizing that this system has done nothing for them. This is a sectarian system that is frankly one that propagates an equal opportunity abuse, i.e. the political elite gain from this system, but everybody else loses. Whether you're Sunni, Shia, Maronite, Orthodox, Druze, it doesn't matter. Everybody is losing.
Right,
and I think that's kind of this.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. This dividing a government along sectarian lines. Do you think there will be a concerted effort to change that system?
I think that this has started. There is a realization amongst the political elite that something fundamentally has changed in the country. I think we're seeing, and we're still grappling with the implications, but we're really seeing a fundamental societal change in how people think about how they want to be governed. This national awakening, a realization that this sectarian system is not protecting anybody, and actually it's propagating the misery of ordinary Lebanese. Now, how this is going to build up, it will take a long time. don't think it's going to happen overnight. I don't see the new cabinet, once it's formed, I mean, we may end up in a stalemate, but that will propagate economic collapse. Or even if a new cabinet is formed, I don't see them holding early elections as has been demanded by the protesters. There may be some steps taken to begin the process of ending the sectarian power sharing, but this will take a very long time.
Right.
Basically, we're asking the political elite to commit collective suicide, because they depend on this for their to justify their existence. It's an
right, and you don't see the political elite in many countries doing that, do you? I want to ask you.
Absolutely not.
Right, I want to ask you, the militant group Hezbollah is one of the country's most popular political parties. How could a change in the government system affect that party? Could it or any other group dominate the political landscape?
Not necessarily. I mean, Hezbollah also relies on these identity politics. So the threat to all the other political parties by ending this sectarian system is also a threat to them. It's an existential crisis for all of them. The way they could come to dominate is if they decide that this power sharing, they're not able to reach an agreement. And Hezbollah's reactions until now have been driven by this perception of, they don't know how to handle dissent. It's the party doesn't really operate. It's military and religious doctrines. These are the two main pillars of the party. So they don't really know how to handle dissent within their own community. They've been trying to depict these demonstrations as some sort of a challenge to their legitimacy, which they weren't. They were really about the socioeconomic conditions, the mismanagement of the country on the political and economic front. Now they've come back and said, no, these protests are legitimate. The only way they can dominate the country is if there is a decision, if they take the decision that, okay, we're going to turn the tables on everyone, use force, and appoint a prime minister that is closely aligned with us, and to hell with everybody else. But then that spells really, I mean, the potential for the country to slide once more into a civil conflict.
Well, we will cross our fingers for Lebanon. They deserve better, and this is such a challenge. Thank you so much for joining us and your expertise, Maha Yahya of the Carnegie Middle East Center. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And to look